I've been working in the new coal forge now for a couple of weeks, and I thought this was a good opportunity to tell you what I think about it and maybe to clarify a few of the details, things that might not have been obvious when we were building the forge in that previous video. Now, a few years ago, when I took the old coal forge out of the shop, that was primarily because I worked mostly in a gas forge, and I was trying to use the induction forge more. I really like the induction technology. It's quick, simple, clean, and more economical than either of the other two choices. But I didn't really have room, the way that forge was designed and built, to have the coal forge and the induction forge readily available all the time. And that was a higher priority to me than having a coal forge in the shop. Because at the time, I didn't really work in coal very often. It probably was less than 5% of my total shop time was spent working in a coal forge. Not that I don't like working in a coal forge, but for production work, the gas forge is way more efficient, and for quick, simple jobs, the induction forge is more efficient. The coal forge, better suited for ornamental work and things with really odd shapes that don't fit very well in either of the other two forges. I did kind of miss the coal forge, and I have found that going over to the little shop has been rather inconvenient because I often want tools that are in this shop, whether it's punches, chisels that are stored up here and I have to keep running back and forth to get the tools that I want to take over there, or if it's because I need the power hammer, treadle hammer, fly press, the KA75, any of those bigger tools are all up here in this shop. So trying to work efficiently out of that coal forge over in that shop really was not a very practical solution to the problem. It was workable. I could get things done when I needed a coal forge, and it was better than not having one available at all. But the main use for that shop really has been YouTube videos, and it's more of a blacksmithing theater, if you would, than a functional shop for my work. Be a perfectly functional shop for most hobbyists, because it is a nice small shop. Has everything you need: forge, hammer, anvil, vise, workbench, and a selection of hand tools. But it doesn't have everything that I like having in this shop. Anyways, I could see a reason that I would want a coal forge back in this shop. And I also have always liked the idea of a big, solid masonry forge, stone, brick, or in this case, adobe over can walls. Now, if you didn't see the can wall construction of this forge, I will link to the previous video where I showed you the construction here in some very abbreviated detail. That wasn't a how-to video. It just gives you an idea of how this forge was actually built. But the other thing that I really wanted in a forge then was the ability to have the coal forge, the gas forge, and the induction forge all available very quickly, very easily, without having to move things to the outer shop and wheel this in, wheel that out. And it just became a real pain with the old forge in here. Obviously, the coal forge is in the middle. My minimum hope for this forge was that the chimney would draw as well as the one that's over in the little shop. And I am really thrilled with this. It draws better than the one in the little shop by a considerable amount. In fact, I don't think I've ever worked in a coal forge that has the draft this one does. It's the same 10-inch chimney pipe I had before that never went away. It's been sitting here in the roof doing nothing for the last couple of years. But the chimney opening is just a little bit better. It's lower down, it's right on the hearth instead of being up in the air a little bit. It's a little bit smaller opening, and it cantilevers over a little bit at this top arch so that it really kind of funnels the smoke up there. Very little, if any, smoke in the shop when I'm working with this. It's been really pleasant to work with. The induction forge then fits over here, and I don't think it is close enough to the coal forge that the heat from the coal forge is really going to bother it. It's pretty far away, but I've got a little piece of cement board in here as a little temporary heat shield. I'll probably make something more permanent that helps deflect any heat from the coal forge from the electronics of the induction forge. And I don't think I'm going to have to move this very often, but I can move it. The cooling unit is down underneath here on a little cart, and I can roll that out. I can set this on top of it, and I can move it out of the way. Ideally, I would have had a cart, kind of a C-shaped cart, that the cooling unit went under the forge and the induction forge then was on top like it is here. But things just don't line up under there. It would have been kind of off to one side. The cooling unit's actually kind of in here, and this is over here, and it just was not going to work out well to do that. For now, it just sits up here on the hearth, and it works out rather well. When we did all the wiring for this, we hardwired the blower for the coal forge, and then wired a switch in for the cooling unit, so I don't have to bend down or reach way back in here underneath the coal forge hearth to get to the cooler switch. It's just right there. That's all it takes to make the induction forge operational. I can now work in here if I need to, and it's real quick and easy. I don't have to set it up. I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm actually working in the gas forge or the coal forge. I need that little isolated heat. So this is really convenient to be able to use it that way. It's going to take me a while to remember the switches over there. I always still want to go underneath there to switch on that cooler. But I think this is going to work out really well. It makes it super easy to use the induction forge. If I'm doing something I just need one quick heat, piece of cake, come over here and do that. Or if I'm working on something that needs some advantages of one other forge or this forge, it's easy to go ahead and use both. Now for the propane forge, I have it sitting on this end of the hearth. The heat really isn't going to hurt a propane forge as long as the hoses are not anywhere near the fire. The ribbon burner forge I was using takes up way too much space. It was a much bigger forge box. It had the blower that was mounted underneath it, and that's not going to fit here. An atmospheric forge fits here just fine. This single burner chili forge is what I'm using right now because I need to reline my double burner chili forge. When I get that done, it will fit here almost as well as this does. It'll just come a little bit further forward, and it'll be a perfectly fine place for that. The only problem I have is that the hoses are not long enough to route all the way around behind this forge to my regulator, which is mounted to a post over there. So I need to get some extension hoses. Not a big deal, I just haven't gotten around to that yet. And to keep the hoses off the floor, I actually put in a piece of conduit in the back of the chimney, about that far below the hearth, so it's not going to get hot at all. And I can run the hose through that and get to the regulator over there. Maybe I'll put some quick releases on there, so it'd be quick and easy to swap forges out if I needed to. And that is one thing about gas forges, is there often need an assortment of gas forges to have different size chambers, longer heats, shorter heats, wider material, that kind of stuff. So it's something I find that I have, I think, 3 that I kind of switch back and forth between right now. There was a question from somebody about how far back my fire pot is here. It really isn't that bad. You don't need to reach into the middle of the fire pot unless you're cleaning out the previous fire, or maybe if you're starting a fresh fire for the day, you need to get in there and work with that. But the rest of the time, you're holding on to the end of a bar that's sticking out this way, or you're working with a pair of tongs and you don't have to lean over at all. So this really is not too far a reach there. The clinker breaker is right here on the front, so it's easy to get to. I have a damper for the blower here on the front, so I don't have to reach under there to get to any of those things. The ash dump is kind of far back in there. It's kind of a pain. I need to see if I can figure out a way to put something right in here that operates at some sort of another extension lever or something. Haven't thought about it too much. Not a real big deal. You only need to dump the ashes once or twice a day while you're working. Or at least that's all I dump them. Now there are some also questions about the adobe getting hot and flaking. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Adobe fireplaces and baking ovens are very common in this part of the world, and they don't have any special treatment. It's just adobe that takes the heat, and they seem to last just fine. The only problem with those is that the baking ovens are often outside, and the rain wears the adobe. They erode a little bit and have to be recoated on the outside from time to time. But the insides don't fall apart because of the heat, so they take the heat pretty well. On the other hand, this is fire brick on the inside with refractory cement holding the fire brick, and this archway is built up out of refractory cement, so it is not adobe. The adobe is actually outside the hottest part of this, so I don't think it's ever going to be a problem. And if it is, it's going to be really easy to fix, because after all, it's just mud. Another comment that I saw quite a bit was that the can wall construction, the cans were just going to melt out because this was going to get too hot. The hottest part of a coal forge is down inside the fire pot. What goes up the chimney is not that hot, but again, the chimney opening is fire brick and refractory cement. And then this section of chimney pipe that comes up to this black pipe is actually a bit of double wall stovepipe. So it's insulated double wall pipe. It's meant for wood stove, and wood stove chimneys take more heat than coal forge chimneys do. And then this black pipe is conventional stovepipe, so it's going to do just fine. The cans are never going to melt out of this, and the bottles aren't going to get so much heat that they're going to break. All of that is just stylistic, and it's not going to pose any kind of a problem in this. Of course, we made the little door that is on the back of the chimney. So if I need to run a really long bar to heat the middle, to punch a hole, put a twist in, something like that, I can run all the way out the back of the chimney just by opening that little door on the back. And I think that's going to be a good option to have, even though I don't anticipate using that feature very often. So the short answer is I'm loving the new forge. I think we're going to see more work in the coal forge as we go forward. Probably a little less work over in the small shop, although we will still go over there and work with that equipment. It's still a good little shop to show that you can get by without all the fancy stuff I've got here. But I do like where this shop is going, and I really want to spend more time in this shop, which means I won't be able to spend quite as much time there. Oh, another thing, the blower here, it has a rheostat on it so I can turn the speed up and down. And it has a switch wired in so I can leave the speed set at a certain speed and just turn the switch on, and the blower will come up to the set speed. It comes up a little slowly, which I think is a feature of the rheostat. If it was turned all the way up to the high speed, it would come up to speed a little quicker. But it's not really a big problem. This blower seems to me to put out a higher volume of air, but it doesn't put it out at the velocity of any of the blowers I have had on that other forge over the years. Same fire pot, they're both Centaur Vulcan fire pots, but that other forge, it seemed like it was always really hard to get a good heat without too much airflow. And this one seems to have plenty of air moving oxygen, but it doesn't have that velocity that makes you want to burn stuff or burns your fire hollow. Hard to say, maybe I'm just imagining things, maybe I just wish it was better. But I really think this Centaur PB50 blower is a better performing blower than anything I've had before. No, I'm not being sponsored by Centaur. I just bought the best stuff that I could afford because I knew I didn't want to have to rebuild this forge in the future. Anyways, those are my thoughts on this forge. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching the video, with a special shout out to my channel members and my Patreon patrons. Channel members receive early access to the videos, while Patreon patrons at the $5 level and above not only receive early access to the videos, they receive those videos ad-free over on Patreon, as well as very occasional exclusive content meant just for Patreon, like less than once a month. So if you're tired of the annoying ads or some of the sponsored content on YouTube, Patreon might be worth checking out. Anyways, thanks again for everybody watching the video. It really makes a difference. Hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, have fun, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we will see you for the next video.